Stop going to therapy. You don't need to fix your marriage. You need to do these three things. You're listening to the Be Better podcast. I'm Harrison Orr, and after being a people-pleasing, reactive, nice guy that almost destroyed my marriage, I now help men to outgrow those same patterns, become calm, grounded, and present leaders of themselves, consequently, their marriage. In this episode, I'm going to break down the three biggest things which create distance in a relationship and ultimately you can address without your partner needing to change an absolute thing, and it will save you thousands of dollars in counselling and therapy and whatever other tools and tactics you probably tried or about to try. So let's look at why people have issues in their relationship. What are the symptoms, right? There is one symptom is we always argue. We're always fighting, which leads to no one feels understood. Right? We don't understand each other. It's like we're on different pages. She's saying this, I'm saying that, and no one feels heard. And we're like just spewing noise out of each other's head at each other until either one person gives up, it escalates, or some person just gives up and walks away or apologizes, but the issue never actually gets resolved. The next is lack of intimacy. That's a big one. Intimacy or sex, which is a byproduct of everything else. I have never met anyone who has had fantastic communication, fantastic leadership, fantastic, everything else in their relationship and just said, the sex is we just don't have sex, right? If you have everything else nailed, I would say maybe you guys aren't really compatible as intimate partners at that point. But addressing sex as the reason for everything else is just slapping a Band-Aid on the actual issue. And of course we go to sex, right? Because it's fun. There's a quick reward. There's quick feedback to know if it's working. And we get a nice reward if we solve that. Unlike some of the others, we don't get that nice big orgasmic climax from having a hard conversation, from staying present with our partner, from making these other changes. But I promise you, you do these other things, you get to have more sex, you get to have better sex, and everything else will just skyrocket from there. And so the first thing a lot of people get wrong or misdiagnose in their relationship is the level of understanding. And so I'm going to break this down in a couple of ways because there's, first of all, the biggest one that so many people struggle with or that so many people get wrong is the desire to understand. And that might sound stupid. You're like, of course I want to understand them. People say that. But if we play back your arguments, if we play back those moments where someone is emotional, someone's had a problem, someone's communicated something to the other person, I can just about guarantee that the tone, the energy, the words that come out of that person's body are not genuinely curious. They're not genuine in trying to understand the other person's reality. What often happens, a problem or an issue gets brought up and it goes straight to defense mode, straight into story mode, or pushing that blame to somebody else, gets reactive, tries to flip it on the other person. Yeah, well, you didn't do this the other day either. Not constructive either. And all of this is because we're not on the same team. In those moments, we're protecting our image, we're protecting our ego over the connection of the relationship, over the other person's reality. And this is why this work, by this work, I mean the personal work that I do with guys and probably why you're here is so important because the depth to which we can understand ourselves is the depth to which we can understand and love our partner. Because if I can understand that, when I get defensive, it's because a part of me is trying to protect me from feeling incompetent, from feeling insecure, from being abandoned, I can then see that in someone else, in my partner. If she's getting defensive or she's triggered, it's just a part of you that doesn't feel safe in this situation. So instead of me then putting her down, making her to see how wrong she is and how right I am, actually then showing some compassion, maybe providing some of that reassurance, providing, the safe space that so many people talk about, which very rarely defined. And while we're here, let's do that. A safe space is the space in which someone can share an emotion or a feeling and not be judged, not be criticized, not, invalidated or not put down, but literally just be able to share that and feel safe doing so. Side note, the reason most men can't create a safe space is because they are not safe in themselves. A part of them early on learned it's bad to be angry. It's bad to experience emotions. And so that's why anytime there's a hint of emotion, they go into solve it, to avoid it, to neglect it, to suppress it, to any of these other approaches, all in the name of not having to feel it. Because if I don't feel it, it's not real. And so if we can't feel our own emotions, if we can't understand ourselves, we're not going to be able to hold that for our partner. We're not going to be able to understand them to that level either. Because when we do that, when you learn we can understand ourselves to that degree, and then we have that curiosity about understanding somebody else, we then have the complete shift of reality of, I see why you did that. I can now see why that makes sense to you in terms of the way that you received my words or my gestures, the way that you experience that, like your reality and the way that you feel, that makes sense. I can see and appreciate how that's real for you. Now, that's not agreeing with it. I'm not if there's some negative or some behaviors or words that don't match maybe our agreed standards or they breach a boundary, I'm not endorsing this. I'm not allowing this. I'm just saying for your reality, I can see how that's why that makes sense. And just viewing the world that way completely removes any of that resentment or frustration that we push onto everybody else of assuming that people know better, assuming that people can choose to be better, but choose not to. Assuming that if everyone was just like me, that we'd be so much better off because nobody has manners or everybody's rude or everybody's, this and that. Everybody is the way that they are, us included, because of what we have been rewarded or punished for throughout our life. Through these parts of us that protect us through various systems and mechanisms. And so when we understand these parts, that's all they do, it makes it so much easier to have compassion and not take things personally. So when we have that level of understanding of ourselves and then of our partner, we can navigate those hard conversations. We can stop things from escalating unnecessarily. And then the next level of understanding is of masculine and feminine dynamics. When we understand that the masculine's healthy role is to be decisive, is to lead, is to, to handle the stress, is to cover things and provide that space for their partner, it invites them in to be in their natural feminine, which is in their flow, their loving, their nurturing, their creative essence. The masculine essentially is the way you can think about it. It's the masculine role to build the house. Or build the home. It's the feminine's role to fill it with love, to breathe life into it. Like men are the logical structure and women are the emotional embodiment of that. And so when we understand that, it makes it so much easier to then understand, the reason my wife is so stressed out is because she's having to be in her masculine making decisions all the time because I say, I don't know, up to you. I let her decide thinking that if I say yes, that she'll be happy. But if she's a naturally feminine woman, which 80% of straight women are, she is then going to be in a zone that she doesn't like. It's like at work. I'm sure there's plenty of roles that you could do, but you don't want to. And so if you're not great at marketing But you can do it. You can fuck around and find out, and you got to hear. But the reason that you are where you are is because you hired other people to do it, and that's their role. Like, you're better, being the direction, being the CEO, being the owner, and like being the visionary, and they're better at the minutia and kind of making everything else happen. Sure, you could step into marketing, but if you have to, you're not going to be happy about it. You're like, this isn't my fucking job. Why do I have to do this? These other people should be doing this shit. Like, I've got other things to do. I want to do that, and it creates that frustration. She's not going to probably say it in as many words, but underneath, subconsciously, that's why she feels that way. That frustration, that not resentment, or left long enough and it can get to resentment, but it's, I shouldn't have to carry this. This is not my role. So as men, when we can provide that direction, we can make those decisions. And to be clear, making those decisions is not being a tyrannical dictator. It's not, this, it's my way or the highway. This is what we're doing. It's either yes or fuck you, get out, and like just controlling like that, which I used to think it was. I used to have all these negative associations between, being decisive and being a leader and providing direction and being confident and all these things. And so I had all these internal battles about stepping into those roles because I associated it with all negative terms and people. I was like, well, that makes you arrogant. That makes you an asshole. Like, it's all these negative things. So part of me wouldn't allow me to make those decisions confidently, wouldn't allow me to step into that version of myself, because then it would mean all these negative things. But what it does mean to provide direction is, instead of saying, I don't care, what do you want, up to you. Here's an offer. How does that feel? What do you think? I prefer what do you feel with a feminine partner, because they're better at feeling. So it taps into that. And one of the frames I like to use, especially with guys that are not used to rejection or they take things personally. When you say to your partner, you're starting to learn how to provide this direction. Hey, babe, what I'm thinking on the weekend is we do this, then we go this place for dinner. How does that feel to you? By saying, how does that feel to you? And providing that level of detail and direction. Even if she says, no, thanks. No, that doesn't feel good. No, I don't want to. She is saying no to that plan, to that suggestion, not you. So taking it personally and then getting frustrated and throwing your hands in the air, fine, whatever you want. I was just trying to do the thing that I thought would make you happy, and throwing it back, all fine. What do you want to do then? All that does is put you both back in square one, or even maybe even further, because it shows to her at the slightest bit of resistance, at the slightest bit of like inconvenience, that you throw that control right back. You throw that decision-making and those reins back because you can't handle it, because you're not equipped to, then pivot, to hold that redirection. And so consider it an opportunity to prove that you can make a decision, that you can follow through, that you're capable, that you can lead, that you can do all these things and be this man that you want to be. It's going to take some proving, take some proof. In the same way that, again, I'll use a business example. If you've just hired an apprentice, you're not just going to instantly, if he says like, cool, hey boss, I'm ready to start, to take over this department. You're not just going to be like, cool, here's the keys, brother, good luck, right? You're going to have to make him prove it. Cool, man. Okay, let's do a performance review. In this situation, what do you do? Show me that you can do this. Show me that you can do that. And then when you're comfortable, then you release a little bit of the reins. All right, cool, man. You can do this for this amount of time, and then we'll check in. And then this amount of time, and it gets further. And then eventually, cool, man, I trust you because you've shown that you can do it. And there you go. Congratulations, you've earned it. Quick pause here. If you're a high-performing man who feels solid at work but finds himself reactive, tense, or second-guessing yourself at home, I've just released a free masterclass that you're going to want to watch. It's called Unshakable Masculine Leadership, and it breaks down exactly why so many capable men still revert to reacting under that pressure at home and what actually changes that pattern. If you want to feel more grounded, steady, and self-led again, go check it out. The link's in the show notes. If you want to feel grounded, steady, and self-led again, the link is in the show notes. Go check it out. All right, now back to the episode. Think of it like this as well, because some men will hear that and think, oh, what, so I have to prove myself because I'm not good enough, and she's just this testing little bitch and wants to see me fail. First of all, I don't know how you got here if that's your attitude, because my content doesn't speak to that type of man, but I know you're better than that, the fact that you're here. And so see this as an opportunity. Like, see it as she wants you to be that man. In the same way that you want that apprentice to level up, you want him to take stuff off your plate. You don't want to be doing the shitty little tasks every fucking day. You want these people to get better, to take over these roles, to grow so that, you can be in the shit that you like to be, whether that's a role in the business or that's stepping out so that it runs itself, or whatever phase that you're in. She wants you to lead. She wants you to make these decisions. She wants you to prove that she can trust you. She wants you to feel confident in stepping into uncertainty, into handling your emotions, into covering her emotions, into all of this. She wants to. You just got to make her feel safe in doing so. And that's all within your control. Right? That's the beautiful thing about this. It is all within your control. Because that leads me into point number 2, which I've already covered a lot of this. But the second point is there's no leadership in the marriage, right? There is no one person that wants to be making the decisions all the time, right? Right now, because you run the business, maybe you say you're tired, maybe you use decision fatigue, maybe you use whatever other excuse, or maybe you're like I was, and I thought if I just said yes to my wife, if I let her choose everything, then she would be happy, and happy wife, happy life, all that stuff. But again, like I've said, that sure, she can make those decisions because she's a grown woman, but she's not going to be happy about it. She's going to feel like she's carrying the weight of the house, of the kids, of the relationship, of me, all on her back. Which was why she often feels like a manager or a mother, not a partner, not a lover. And that's why the desire goes down. That's why the attraction, the intimacy, and everything goes down, because of that role she's had to step into. And so we get to provide opportunities, show proof that she can trust us, that we can lead, that we understand her needs, we can hold our own, that we can make these decisions, that we can follow through. One of the biggest things, absolutely destroying the trust in just about every single relationship, is not following through on your words. If you feel like your wife has to nag you, she has to remind you multiple times, I promise you she doesn't like doing that. I promise you she doesn't like having to say the same thing 10 times in order to get you to do something. Because that kills trust. It kills the connection. It starts to build resentment because neither of you like these kind of interactions. But eventually both of you learn that, okay, she learns, okay, I have to say it 10 times and then raise my voice and get stroppy about it before he does something. And then up until then, you don't take any action. What will build more trust, more confidence, more self-leadership in you more than anything else? And this all starts within you, right? The trust that you have for yourself, the respect that you have for yourself, the authority you have over yourself, the leadership you have over yourself and the parts of you, is all what has to happen first before you can expect to receive any of that from your wife or anybody externally. And all of that starts with congruency. The things that you said you would do, just fucking do them. If you said you were going to do this, if you said you were going to do that, do it like you said by the time that you said you would, to the standard that you said you would. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. Like, just do it. And when you actually start holding yourself to this standard of execution and congruency, a couple of things happen. First of all, the trust in you goes up. Like, your level of action goes up through the roof. And so does your mental capacity. Because think of, at the moment, how many tabs you have open, how much brain space is now being occupied remembering things that you said you would do that you still need to do. And then imagine not having that. Most people can't, because they've never consistently executed on the things that they said they would for a long enough time period to know what that feels like. But the clarity that you have in your mind, the level of speed that you move through life, is significantly faster. And the confidence and the trust you have in yourself is 10x. And then that just gets reflected back into you by the way your wife treats you. And then because you are so congruent with what you say you will do and actually following through, it makes it so much easier for you to say no and set boundaries, because you no longer commit to the things that you don't want to do. Like, it's so much easier to say, like, no, I'm not going to commit to that. I don't want to do that. I don't have capacity for that right now. Because your word means everything. And people will trust you so much more, because I don't know about you, but I would every day of the week choose to have a person in my life who can say no rather than someone who would say yes and never do it. Like, yeah, man, yeah, no worries, I'll do it. Silence, ghosting, nothing. Weeks later, hey, man, you said you do this. Can you, what's happening here? Oh, yeah, man, I've just been super busy. Yeah. And they kick that can down the road and down the road and down the road until it becomes this awkward thing. And eventually you just assume that the person's never going to do it. And they think, oh, thank finally, you stopped asking. Instead of just saying, like, nah, man, I can't do it. Go find someone else. Not in a rude way, but like, I'm going to save you time instead of waiting around expecting me to do it when it's not a priority for me right now. Communication, connections, relationships, like self-trust, self-confidence, all the things, infinitely better. And most importantly, all through your control. Like, one of the biggest epiphanies a lot of the guys in the ground man method have when they start doing this work is realizing that all of these changes are all within their power. It's not, I'll be confident when I have this level of money, or I'll feel this way when I have this, or, externalizing when they will feel something, when there will be something, to this external metric, which has so many variables outside their control attached to it. All of this is internal. All of this is within your control, which means you can do something about it today if it's a priority. So when you start to lead yourself, you start to trust yourself, then that just flows over into your relationship naturally. And yes, it takes time. Yes, it takes consistency. But it also takes looking at the parts of you that were using the previous system as a protective mechanism. Like trying to please everybody else first, put others first, like putting yourself down, like doing all these things for other people is not often just a cool switch in behavior. Yes, it helps. But there's a protective part of you that has been using that as a system to protect you from something. And so this is the trap that most smart, nice guys fall in, smart, capable men that in this situation fall into, is that, okay, I'm doing this and that's a problem, so I'll change the behavior and do this. And they do that, right? They make that change when they're hyper aware. They're very conscious of it. But then there's this, if they don't get that immediate result that they're looking for, it's like the questions start coming up of like, cool, I'm doing it. How much longer? When is it going to change? When is she going to, start receiving this better? When are we going to have more sex? Like, when is this going to be different? And just by asking that, just by framing that externally or internally, you're acknowledging that you can't keep this up forever. You're acknowledging that this is a performance. This is a mask. I haven't truly changed. I'm doing this again to get something in return. I'm doing this to please my wife. I'm doing this so she'll get off my back. I'm doing this for some other reason, as opposed to working with that part of you to help just update it and get it out the way. So that when you do these things, it's just who you are, because it's what you want to do, whether you get anything reciprocated or not. So the first piece was understanding. The second piece was leadership. The third piece, and this is the piece that makes everything else that we've just covered even remotely possible, and that's regulation. It does not matter the words that you use to try and understand your partner. It doesn't matter the script that you use or the framing of how you provide this leadership or this decisiveness in your relationship. If you are still reactive, if you're still short, if you're still disconnected, if you're still like coming at this from the point of it's what she wants to hear, it's what's going to get me the result, she will sniff that out, and that will trigger you more than anything else. Because she will sniff out your intention. She will sniff out something that's off, and you will get defensive. You will get frustrated. You get annoyed, and then maybe even use the scapegoat of like, well, this is what you said you wanted. I'm doing it for you. And then you maybe throw out some accusations of your own because she called you on that bullshit. Because underneath everything, underneath the masks, was still a reactive part trying to protect you, was still a part that hadn't been integrated, a nervous system that hadn't learned to hold rejection, to hold emotional pressure, to hold any of this tension, and everything else is just icing on top. The regulation is what makes it possible to not get triggered, to not react, to choose how we respond, to actually have a felt presence with our partner. And if you don't think that you can feel presence, like you don't think that they notice, I promise you that they can. If you have, this is an exercise that you can do if you have a woman who's well attuned to herself. And it'll take start with 2 minutes. 2 minutes is going to feel like a hell of a long time. Sit down with no distractions, ideally no kids, like no music on, like nothing else. Literally sit down facing each other, and she's going to go first, or you're going to go first. All she has to do is just sit there. You're going to look into her eyes and give her your undivided presence. And as soon as she feels your presence wavering, she doesn't feel your presence anymore, she's going to put up her hand. And then when she feels it again, she'll put it back down. She doesn't feel it again, she's going to put it back up. And so even though you might be maintaining eye contact, even though you might be still sitting there feeling like I'm paying her attention, like I don't know what else she wants, you've now left your body and you're now talking into your own head. You've left the present, you've left the feeling, you've left the body and gone into your head where you feel safe. And she feels that. And that's what she says. That's what she means when she's like, you feel off. You're here, but I don't feel you. And after 60 seconds, swap over. So you can feel what it's like. She's going to give you her undivided presence. If you don't feel it, put your hand up and back down. Now, this is tricky for a lot of men because they're not used to being in their body. So if you're someone who struggles to feel things because you suppress things, because you spend so much time in your head, this may be difficult to access, to actually feel this. But that's also a great sign because it means that you have so much more capacity for love and for feeling your partner and yourself that you're not currently accessing, that when you can access that, you'll be able to feel the full range of emotions of yourself and your partner, which means the depth, the presence, the connection, all the things that you really want in your marriage, you will be able to feel through that access point. And so that's what I mean when I say the depth to which you can understand and love yourself is the depth to which you can love and understand your partner or anybody else. So if you do that exercise, expect it to feel awkward. Expect to feel wildly uncomfortable, wildly vulnerable. And that's amazing. Like that you can feel that with the person that you have chosen to spend your life with, the person that you have probably kids with, and you can still feel that. And it also shows what you're not experiencing together if you can't share that. So think about what your marriage and your life could be like if you got to share some of those emotions, if you got to go to that level of depth and connection. What would be different in the way that you feel around each other, in the way that you connect with each other, and just in your quality of life? And maybe even in the standard that you set for your kids in terms of how they treat their partners when they get older. Like the standard that they have in their mind for what love and marriage and for like a soulmate and that connection actually is. Because you get to model that. How you show up at home, how you treat your partner, how you navigate emotional stress and turmoil, and how you treat your kids, regardless of what day you've had. You are modeling to them everything. What it means to be in love, how you treat your partner, how you handle your emotions, how you treat others, how you look after yourself. And that's a great reflection. Not only for yourself, like if you're not happy with, if you feel things aren't the way you want them to be, consider how you're modeling it for them and if that's worth changing. So with that, don't be sorry, be better. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.